Welcome back to Live With, brought to you by Species Nutrition. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today's guest is a special one. We're going to be talking about some of the Mexican anabolic steroids that made their way into the U.S. market over the last 15 or so years. And one of the guys who was actually facilitating some of these brands was an interesting guy who's going to come and tell us a lot about this whole operation. His name is Cash Maroney. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave.
Now, Cash, I love this story because, I was involved in this whole, I guess you could say, steroid subculture at the time I was competing. I was, using products, all these products that you had access to, Quality Vet, Animal Power, Dencal. These are brands that anyone who competed back in the late 90s, early 2000s, really, they know the names, and they don't really know where they came from. Originally, I had a friend of mine, who I won't name, from Australia, who was telling me about these brands that were being made in Mexico, but they were putting like Australian, they were making it look like it was coming from Australia, I guess. They were putting like kangaroos on the outside of these things. He said the stuff is great, high quality ingredients. And so when they became available, I started using them. I didn't know originally they were being made in Mexico. What was your introduction? How did you actually find out about that? And how did you actually wind up in Mexico? Because you're not Mexican, you're American.
Well, Dave, I came here, believe it or not, for a, quote, steroid shopping cycle in 96. With a friend from the gym, basically bought an airline ticket. At that time, you didn't even have to use your passport. You could actually just come into Mexico with your driver's license and your birth certificate.
Right.
Bought a plane ticket, got off the plane, went downtown, pretty much, got a room in whatever hotel I could find, and went to the phone book, looked up pharmacy, ripped out the page, grabbed the taxi driver, said, take me to every one of these on the list. Of course, in that time, almost all the steroids that you could buy in the pharmacy were very basic, 50 milligram. And then when you're looking at vet stuff, the same thing. It was Tornel, Brovel,
right.
An injectable D-ball that was horrible because people would put it in a capsule and swallow it, and you're like, you're choking.
Oh, I used to inject the stuff. I loved that injectable D-ball. I had a lot of B vitamins, which made it a little hard, a little painful to inject, but it was good stuff.
Referbit B. It was a B complex.
Yeah.
50 milligrams of injectable D-ball, and it stung like notable. It was unbearable.
Well, people don't realize vitamin B12 doesn't hurt when you inject it, but the B6s and those vitamins like sting like crazy,
Well, you go to the pharmacy here, you buy the injectable the B complex, which I still take once a week, and they mix it with lidocaine to help, for the burning sensation, but it still hurts a little bit. But
you know what? Then they started making a Reforvit without the B vitamins. I remember we were getting D-ball too.
So at the end, so basically came down, bought a bunch of stuff, and just FedExed it back, and of course. A week later, I get back to to Florida, and there's a shoebox, full of waiting for me. Which back then it wasn't really a big deal, like it became later. Came back a year later for a job offer because I was bilingual, and just turned into more and more and more. And now my own, a couple of businesses here. I've been here I'll be here 23 years, March 1st. Originally from New York, grew up in Florida, University of Florida Gators, and economy-wise, even with the recession, things here just always been good.
Yeah, but you obviously got involved with the whole, distributing of anabolic steroids down there in Mexico. How did you meet the people who were doing the Dencal and the Quality Vet stuff, and where did that stuff come from? Who actually was making that stuff?
Well, there was the main owner of Dencal, Quality Vet, and then later Animal Power. His name was Satil Cohen, and I didn't meet him originally. What happened was I had a friend from the gym who was a licensed veterinarian supply, and these products just started popping up. First, it was Quality Vet and Dencal, and I could remember, even in muscular development back then, they started popping up, like talking about how good the product was, For example, you could get like a Deca 300, and it would test out between 270 as high as sometimes 330 milligrams per mil.
Yeah, they were overdosed, those. Absolutely. High, super high quality. You can depend on it. They had holograms. They were the first people to put holograms on the bottles. You could actually go and check the lot numbers online. They had a running tab of the latest lot numbers. So no one could fake that stuff back then. It was impossible.
Yeah, in the beginning, no one even thought to fake it because you could buy a bottle of Deca 300 from, say, Quality Vet, and it was like $45 a bottle.
And no one made 300 milligram Deca before that. Zero people did, you know.
They had 75 milligram anadrols, Test 400.
Right. Those hurt. The Test 400 hurt. But you know what they had that I loved, and I still don't see to this day on the market? Methandryl dipropionate. They had pure methandryl dipropionate, which a lot of people don't know. You know, we were always told, and I believe it to be true, I think it makes other steroids work better. They say, some people say it clears the androgen receptors, but I don't know how it worked. But, you know, in Australia, they used to mix methandryl dipropionate with other compounds like equipoise. They called it Drive, I think, and they mixed it with Deca.
Andriol. And it was made by, I believe, Deca.
Yeah, they made it. They had a brand of it. It was great.
It was to take, I believe, like 100 milligrams every other day because the theory was that it would actually open up your receptors so you can absorb more product. The Trenbolone that they made was all 75 milligrams.
Yeah,
and it was
strong.
It was unbelievable. It was some of the, when you're sitting in your office and you have a storeroom of 10 different products of everything you could think of, great GH at the time, before the China market turned to crap.
And it was all color coded. I loved it because I didn't even have to look at the bottle. I knew the Deca was red, right? I believe, and I don't remember all the different colors. There was I forget what was green. Was Winstrol green?
The Boldenon was green.
Oh, the Boldenon was green, right?
Androl was blue. It was like, you gave me 2 bottles of the red and one of the blue, one of the pink.
I loved it. It was so easy. It was great. And you never had to worry.
It was because, that was before all the underground labs started in the States. So, the big thing with Operation Gear Grinder was it was basically with what was his name? Taylor Hooton, the kid who died supposedly of steroids.
Yeah.
And, Joe Biden at the time was vice president. And basically, you got to remember, these labs in Mexico were all licensed labs. This was not underground. They all had what's called a SACAR license.
Well, that's why the stuff was so good because of that.
Here's the thing is, like, pretty much the United States pressured the Mexican government to close them down.
Right.
And then they came after everybody. And basically what I did was, the product was here, but it wasn't getting over there. So
you facilitated that.
I facilitated it, obviously. And the owner, the main owner of that time, Cecile Cohen, it was like, they had, suppliers buying, $5,000, $2,000, because we had product in dollars. And, all of a sudden he's getting, orders for 50,000.
How much were you buying at a time from them?
But we still carry like the quote traditional veterinary drugs, Tornell, Brovel, because once they seen the other companies start to bump up the milligrams, they wanted to jump into the mix.
Sure. Yeah.
At the high end of it, in 2005, we were probably carrying 8 different brands of product, and probably wholesale purchasing, like $250,000 a month wholesale.
Wow. And what were you making profit wise on that?
Our profit margin was like 45 to 55%.
Oh shit! So you were making a lot of money.
Yeah, it was good. It was,
Now you were selling it through HGH Mex and Mex Vet brands. I know they used to advertise the back of muscle development, ironically enough. And
I kind of became the guy, like I was talking about, like at the 2003 Nationals where you were competing.
Yeah.
And in the audience, and my phone, like they could call they could call the numbers on the ad, and then it would relay to my cell phone, and I'm in Florida. I'm sitting in the prejudging at the Nationals, And I'm like, like my phone would ring. I probably, because I handled all calls, all emails. I didn't want to hire anybody because I wanted to take care of it personally. I had guys that did shipping and handled all the, money, but I wanted to give that service to where people knew they're getting a product. And then when they hear an American guy on the other side of the phone, they just become more relaxed.
Right. It's not like they're sending their money to some foreign guy,
Sitting there at the Nationals in the prejudging, and it's very quiet, and they're going through all the mandatories, and it's like phone to ring, and I'm like, oh, okay, 30 Decas, 20 Trends, you need 4 boxes of GH, and the people started like listening, like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And 10 minutes later, another call, and it's like, and people started asking me like, well, who are you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I can talk like that because I live in Cancun. And I own this company, and I hand him a card. I'm like, you can see me in, muscular development.
Did you think there was anything wrong, though, with the fact that you were sending stuff to the U.S.? Did you think maybe the U.S. government would say, hey, this guy is trying to, defraud us. He's sending product from Mexico to us? Or were you like, they can't get me. I'm in Mexico, Was that the attitude?
I'm Mexican citizenship. But the thing was nothing, I never received any money in my name. The company, our licensed vet supply company that we bought the product was not in my name. And, I made sure.
Whose name was it in? Was it in a corporation name?
Yeah, it was incorporated. But the thing is, it's, and the corporation wasn't even mine. I just came in and, here's this guy who had a vet supply business and was doing nothing with it. And then 6 months later, he's getting checks for $20,000 at a time.
Oh, so you were paying someone else to take use their name.
We partnered up.
Right.
He did the grunt work, and I handled all the sales. And I remember meeting. That's how I met John Romano. And I'm like, hey, John, the companies in the back of the magazine that are selling all the product. Yeah, that's me. And then Steve, and even Steve knew who I was. And
ironically, I'm shocked that he took that kind of a chance taking the ads. I guess, but back then it really wasn't a big deal. But
a lot of people doing ads, but from
Steve was probably a nervous wreck when Operation Grind, whatever, the gear grinder went down.
I'm sure. But here's the thing though. Even because we're in MD, not only were I getting calls from the States, I was getting servicemen overseas.
Right. Were you guaranteeing over 2 days delivery? Like if they ordered, they would have it in 2 days?
Well, if they did a minimum order of $250 up to $1,000, it was, we'll ship it, send you a tracking number. Good luck with customs.
Yeah.
For our clients that wanted to buy over $1,000 and they spent about $150 in shipping because we had some fees to get it onto the U.S. side.
Yeah.
We ship it from inside the U.S. anywhere in the world. Those packages they got within between, I would say, 3-4 days with the whole process.
Right. How do you get the stuff from Mexico into the U.S. to be able to ship it from the U.S.? What's the secret?
This is the $1 million question.
Yeah.
Well, and back at that time, you have at the borders my partner had a warehouse. I can't remember what part of the border, but you got to think 30,000 people walk across a day to go to work.
Oh, really? Okay.
You have these college kids that are making nothing, and this was something that my partner did. I had nothing to do with.
Right.
I was paying these kids to cross over 2-3 packages a day, and they were giving them $50 cash. Now you got to remember, when you walk across the border, all they have is a guy standing there sometimes with, and they're not going to smell steroids.
No, so they would bring the package, they'd go bring it to the post office and mail it out?
For example, at that time, when I flew into the Nationals in 2003, I was probably 292. I was a little over 290, and I'm 5'11".
Yeah.
I'm all dressed in black. I'm wearing, a nice watch. It was they literally pulled me aside, took all my bags, dumped them on the floor right there, took my bags, x-rayed them, took me in, searched me, and, they're like, why do you live in Mexico? And I'm like, because I have a real estate company. We do commercial real estate. And I'm like, well, here's my card. And, when they see you in customs weighing 290, 300.
Right.
Okay, you're coming from Mexico. You got to have some juice on you.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't have nothing.
I
I'm
mean,
like,
if you're 290, you'd be a moron to carry juice with you, right? I mean, because it's like you're a billboard for it. So.
I mean, like right now, I just been doing TRT for a year, 250 milligrams of Enanthate weekly, just basic TRT, and I'm still 276, and I'm not taking nothing. And even now, I mean, I'm not as lean as I was, but you know, you're right. I mean, people look at you. You go through Miami, especially. It's like, you know, I feel like Pablo Escobar with 20 kilos of cocaine in my bags, and I have.
Did that make you nervous though? Like maybe they know, maybe they're onto me. Maybe they know something that why they pulled me over.
No, because nothing was through me. I was just the guy taking the sales.
Yeah, I know, but you got to be paranoid when you're doing stuff like that. There's no way you can just not ever be paranoid if you're dealing drugs.
Well, you know what it was, since it was legal in Mexico, and since I wasn't facilitating anything going in the States. What made it such the big deal was with Taylor Hooten and Biden pressing it was they came into Mexico pretty much, closed down every veterinary pharmaceutical company. The owner, Satil Cohen, was in California. They grabbed him.
Right, I remember that.
Aside, he couldn't. They held him for a year, and they finally had to let him go.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. Well, I was indicted on 8 counts. And everything I was indicted for, I literally, everything that they indicted me for, I had no connection to.
Did they actually come and arrest you at some point?
No. Actually, I had a warrant for my arrest in October of 2006.
Right.
I flew to Florida, not once, not twice, 3 times.
Right. It didn't come up? That's funny.
I'm sitting on New Year's at my dad's house in Jacksonville, and they're like, you need to get back to Mexico. And I'm like, why? And they're like, they have a warrant for your arrest. And I'm like, you're shitting me. And it's a federal warrant. So I literally took a bus, 36 hours from Jacksonville, Florida, through the Panhandle, back to Texas, crossed the border, jumped on a plane in Monterey, and flew back to Cancun. It was like pretty much 48 hours of nonstop traveling with no shit. And I just peeled my clothes off. And
were you a nervous wreck? Were you nervous?
Once I got across the border, I was like, and of course, I contacted, believe it or not, Rick Collins was the first one called. And, but of course, then I think he ended up representing Satil Cohen, so it was a conflict of interest.
Oh, he did? I didn't know he represented him. That's interesting.
Every lawyer I talked to, they're like, all right, are you hiding in Mexico or do you live in Mexico? I'm like, I live in Mexico.
Yeah.
They're like, just let it blow over. And then in 2011...
so you never came back to the U.S. during that time period then, huh?
In 2006, middle 2006 to the middle of 2011, I did not come back to the States. And then a federal judge in California reversed all the charges. Everything was wiped clean, and that was the end of it.
Now, why was that? Was that because of what happened with the owner of the company, or what?
There was no evidence. It was all, the thing was that they said in between 2004, 2005, 2006, they said that the steroid market in the United States they estimated at $52 million per year.
Right.
And the way they put it, like I was the kingpin.
Yeah.
Because the Mexican companies didn't have the format to bring the product into the States.
Sure.
And so they put me as like I was the big, conspirator. And all the indictments that they gave me were actually with Brovo Labs, which I had nothing to do with Brovo, which was really weird. So in the end, I believe it was pretty much a lot of word of mouth, and that's how they got the indictment.
Yeah, but how come they didn't just go grab you? I mean, they do that all the time with guys.
Well, it was the Southern District of California's prosecutor's office. It was DEA, and it was the PGR in Mexico, which is basically like the Mexican FBI.
Yeah.
And, it's good that I have my wife's a Mexican national. She's a lawyer. And basically I got what's called an amparo, which basically means they could not pick me up, by law. And, in Mexico, at the time, you're talking when, the drug cartels were in major wars and conflicts. And, when they looked at my case, like, okay, we got to pick this guy up for steroid trafficking. It was like, you can go to the Walmart and buy steroids over the counter without a prescription. So to them, it was a joke.
Yeah.
And
I guess you got lucky because, other people have been, were not so lucky.
But, like the thing is when I seen, DEA, and I went to the DEA website to see their wanted, and it's like, they didn't have my picture. They just had like an outline with my, and like the person across from me is like a guy who's like, moving 50 tons of cocaine a month. And, when they caught this guy, it was like they brought in like the Mexican Marines out, and they dragged this body out of the building. These are the kind of people they were looking for.
You're lucky they didn't pull you out of a building. What? Now, were you still selling stuff, or did you stop it when your indictment went down?
Soon as I heard that in Florida, my wife pretty much hopped on a plane, met me in Jacksonville. We came back together.
Yeah.
And, I just said, cut my losses. Because the thing is, the companies got shut down like immediately.
So you really had no inventory left at that point, right?
And, the sad thing is, knowing how to compound products, the market was wide open. After that, everything was dry for a year. People in the States were, I hear guys paying like, I'm paying $300 for a bottle of Deca because there is no product.
Right.
And, some companies that popped up afterwards, undergrounds here in Mexico, the quality, some are good. But I would have to say, because you said one day on one of your interviews, it was like, I think it was with John, like 50% of the product is fake.
Yeah.
They hear 90% of the product is either fake
or weak,
heavily diluted, or if you're buying, say, a high expensive product like Primo,
it's not real Primo,
yeah. So you're not getting. There are a few that are more reputable because they also have a supplement line here in Mexico, but in the majority, you see guys taking, 600, 800 milligrams of test, 600 Deca, 400 to 600 Boldenon, 300 milligrams of Tren, and 100 milligrams of D-ball, and they put on 5 pounds.
Because they don't eat anything. How much do you think you made over the course of that couple of years that you were doing this?
Not as much as the government said I did.
Yeah, obviously not. Yeah, but
and over those couple of years, probably, all the. You got a partner I had to,
Yeah. And what do you think did you save the money, or were you spend it like a retard?
I turned that into some other things.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know, 40, 50 grand a month.
You made 40, 50 million over how much of a time period?
$4 or $5, $40,000, $50,000 a month.
Right. So how many years was that over? 2?
Over 2, almost 3 years.
That's good. That's pretty good. Did you save it, or like I said, did you waste it on stupid stuff?
Oh, just when you've been here as long as I have, and you're in Cancun, where it's kind of a party town.
Yeah.
Almost your age. You don't go to the clubs. You don't get into.
Yeah, but when you were doing this when you were younger, were you like trying to be the man back then? I mean, because I'm sure the money was good.
Like the man, but I felt more like the man when I used to go to the Olympia,
right?
Nationals. I go to the USA because like for example, the Nationals. By the end of the weekend, the guy who won the show, and I still can't remember his name, and we talked about it, and it's like the guy's like runs up to me. Beelines and like, you're the guy from Mexico, and I'm like, yep. And he's like,
so you love that. You love the whole notoriety thing. Obviously, you were living off of that.
I've always been a fan, and when you have guys that are, I won't say any names, but you have guys that are top 6 at the Arnold, top 6 at the Olympia,
right?
And they're coming to talk to you at the expo. It's nice.
They wanted the gear. Obviously, you had good stuff, so that's why they were talking to you.
Of course, a lot of them wanted to do business because,
and probably a lot of them wanted free stuff from you too. I'm sure.
Yeah, well, there's always the guy that's like, hey, I'm top 5 at the Olympia. I get my stuff for free. I'm like, well, not for me.
What was the markup on the stuff that you were selling? Like, let's say I come to you, Dave Palumbo, and I'm like, look, I don't want to deal. I don't want it shipped. I want to get the inside the U.S. shipping. I'll buy $5,000 a month from you, or $10,000 a month from you. What is it? What's your profit on my 10 grand I'm going to give you every month?
I think a Deca 300 was like, our cost was like $48, and our website price was like $110.
Now,
and at that time,
I'm going to tell you something, because when I was getting the Denkel and quality vet stuff, I was paying a lot less than you were paying. How is that possible?
well, here's the thing. You actually did an article once where they were actually mixing real bottles with fake bottles of Quality Vet, Denkel, Animal Power, Sig Group at the border. And I believe a lot of the pharmacies, they were dropping their costs extremely low. So they would maybe mix in, out of every 20 bottles, they mix 10 fake ones to cut the cost.
I was getting the original lots, and I had a very good connection. I probably had a very direct, connection through, I'm not going to say who the people are, but I had, like I said, I had a special guy who I knew in Australia who was in deep with the initial, I guess, run of those things. And I was getting them, I was buying a lot of them, at the time, but I was getting good pricing on them. I just think that were there different routes? Like, I think that what happens is they sell to the Mexicans for one price, and then they sell to the Americans for another price. And you might not have been getting the best pricing. It didn't matter, though. You were moving so much merchandise,
The Sig Group that you're talking about with the kangaroo with the boxing gloves on.
Yeah.
Basically, a company from Mexico. Sig Group was an Australian company that had a licensing agreement for a company to produce their product in Mexico.
That's exactly what it was, yeah.
Example with Organon, with Cestanon. They have Organon Mexico, Lilly Mexico. They make it here.
Right.
But, the Sig Group was a really good product, but they didn't have a complete line like the other ones. But you know what? You might have had a guy that probably was a fan of yours at the time and was giving it to you for almost cost.
I think I was getting it pretty close to that. It was a great.
It was basically, hey, it's Dave Palumbo, and the guy was trying to hook you up with a great price.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? We had people that were buying $15,000, $20,000 orders on, like on a bi-weekly basis.
Sure.
They would take that $110 bottle, because you got to remember, the farther you go from the border, the higher the price is going to go.
Of course.
And I remember guys in Canada buying Quality Vet and paying like $200 US for a bottle of Deca 300 Quality Vet, because they would cross it at the border.
Right.
At the border, money to be made. Maybe they make $20 on it, but what happened to the Carolinas, New York, and stuff like that? I was
paying. I'll tell you what I was paying. If I remember correctly, I was paying about anywhere from $28 to $36 per bottle, depending on what it was, and at what time, and how many we bought.
That's super cheap.
Yeah, and I knew it was super cheap. So, but it was like you said, the quality was phenomenal. You could check the holograms. You knew it was good. It was really came around at a good time, because right before that we were getting American stuff, and that's when there was the whole
underground.
It wasn't underground. It was coming. It was Steroids, testosterone, Deca, all the suspension, HCG. It was coming from a Dominican doctor, and it was getting, somehow funneled into the bodybuilding world. And then that dried up, and so Denkel and Quality that came around at a perfect time, and provided that kind of bridged the gap, so to speak.
I remember a company that you highly talked good about. It was an underground in the States called Redline. And the problem with Redline was that sometimes the product would be really good, sometimes it would be weak, or the product would be so painful, I don't know why, maybe they put too much benzyl alcohol or whatever, and that you couldn't even shoot it. And, at the time your career was coming to an end.
Yeah, I ended right there, yeah.
When was the last time you competed? 2006?
2004 was the last time, yeah.
Yeah, so you in when there was pretty much those 3 years of the best product you could get your hands on.
I still had, believe it or not, when I retired, I still had Denkel left in my collection. Believe it or not, because what I would do is, a lot of bodybuilders don't do this. They're stupid. they buy everything they need and then they run out, you know. I would buy 3 years. I'd have enough stuff for 3 years in my career. So if steroids stopped being produced, I would still have 3 years of being able to compete, having all my gear that I needed. I would never take a chance. My drawer always had my stuff in it, and then I would never sell my stuff, you know. And so it didn't matter what happened to the market, because you know what happens. Things dry up, but they never dry up for more than 6 months to a year. But it didn't matter if it did, because I always had my stuff, and I knew it was good quality. And that's the key. You know, if you're a bodybuilder, I hate to say it, but if you find good stuff, and nowadays, you know, I sell those Roy test kits so you can test your gear. If you have a good bunch of gear and you know it works well and your body looks good when you're using it, buy a ton of it and put it in your drawer for yourself. You know, that doesn't get touched, because you don't want to have to go looking around. I hate these guys that they're 6 weeks out from a show and they ran out. Oh, I'm out of Tren, I'm out of clenbuterol, I'm out of Cytomel. How could you do that 6 weeks out? You actually started your diet not having all your gear? You got to be nuts, you know?
Plus, too, if you have a good stash for a couple of years, it's better than money in the bank, because you can
absolutely
you can sell it for triple.
Yeah, it doesn't go bad. It doesn't go bad. Yeah.
Gollum from Lord of the Rings is like, my precious. The guys have their shoebox in the closet. You know, with like 50, 60 bottles.
Yeah.
Why would you sell it?
I used to collect. I had museum pieces. I used to collect like exotic anabolics. This is when I was obsessed with it when I first started doing it. Unfortunately, a friend of mine robbed my house and I lost a lot of it. Not that it was I would still have it today, but I had like bottles of veterinary Winchell V. I had remember Masteron used to be called Permastril or Permastril in France. I had bottles of that. I had Essiclean, the real Essiclean. You know, they came 10 in a tray. I had stuff that no one ever, you know, that I had what was it called? I had Drive from Australia in 10 cc bottles. Believe it or not, when I went to Dubai in 1996, they had it there. And you know what? They were giving me tons of free steroids when I went there to use, and I'm like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? I can't bring it back. They gave me 2 bottles of Drive. I was so obsessed with getting this stuff because everyone said how great it was that I actually smuggled it back in a sock of mine, which was stupid in hindsight, but actually my luggage got lost. So I never went through customs with my luggage. They wound up delivering it to my house. And I had those bottles for years. I never used them because I didn't want to. I was just so happy to look at the bottles and say, look, I got Drive, you know. So really, I mean, it's a shame I don't have those bottles. It would have been nice, at least just for like museum pieces, to say, hey, this is the history of anabolic steroids. We could have, you know, showed that whole history.
Having is, like, for example, there was a company, it was a legit pharmacy human. They used to have a product called Sten and Stenox.
Yep.
Stenox was tested, and the Sten used to come in an ampule, and it would be 2 amps, 150 milligrams per amp, and it was like pure DHT test. Well, I found this in my closet the other day.
Oh my God, that's funny. Wasn't there DHEA in there too?
Yeah, you're going to laugh. Guess what the expiration date is on this ampule?
I bet it's like 06 or something, right?
2002.
That's great. You know, I found an old Primabone, a Schering Primabone amp, like in like an old suitcase of mine. It was like shoved in a pocket.
Well, they used to sell those here in Mexico, and they discontinued them about 6 years ago.
Yeah, people don't realize Primabone in Mexico was 50 milligrams per amp, and then the one in Spain, which was by the same company, Schering, was 100 milligrams per amp.
So the Schering here, I'll give you an example, Dave. When I moved there in '97, you could buy Organons.
Yeah.
The Ready-Jects were $1 a pop.
Yep.
Now they are $18 a pop.
It's crazy. I don't know why they sell them for so much. I guess, you know,
because they jacked up the price because they don't want people buying it and taking it back.
I used to get, you know what, this is true. I used to get a guy who would bring them to me, and literally they used to come with, remember they came with the big needle? They don't do it anymore now. They have no needle on them, but they have like a little rubber stopper. But they would be in the syringes with the needle, and I would literally have like 1,000 of them, all foiled up. I don't know where they got them from because they were cheap.
Well, the Sten were in ampules, the one I just showed you, and then later they put 2 Ready-Ject syringes.
Right.
Package. And I'll tell you what, the Stenox, the hollow tested.
Yeah.
You know, if you're competing, you know,
they were good. They were good.
They were 2.5 milligrams, and there was 20 to a box. So it's like you had to take a box a day just to get, like a good dose.
I
But
know,
they were
I
like
know.
a box.
The American ones, I used to get them. They were like little green mints, and they were 20 milligrams, which is what you wanted per day. They were 20 milligram pills, and they would be like these little green mints. They come 100 in a bottle, and you would only need them the last 2 weeks. So a bottle would last you 5 shows. Pretty much. And
Yeah.
they were so cool looking. Because they were these green. There were no green pills in out there at the time because except Halotestin, so you knew what it was.
Before they put that ban on Chinese GH, I believe in 2000, I don't know, was it 2006, 2007 when Stallone got caught? Were you getting those Gentropin kits, the 100 IU kits with the 10 little bottles?
Yeah, I had a lot of those. I didn't like them. I always had American GH. I didn't trust the other stuff.
But though those Gentropin kits,
They were good.
They were. Well, remember I told you those. They came out with an IGF-1 called IG-tropin.
Yeah.
I still have a box, and I mean, there's no real IG. I mean, I know there's the one IGF that's from France. It's like $1,200 a box. It's some. I can't even remember.
Well, they got the American brand called Increlex, but that's really not the long R3 version. That's like regular IGF-1.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like $1,000 a box.
I know, yeah, that's expensive, but
who can afford that?
I know.
Unless you're over there.
Do you think there'll ever be like another like golden age of like where steroids are coming into the country again from Mexico, like there was when you were doing that back with the Quality Vet and Dankel stuff?
I have my own. Well, now with China closing last year, I
don't think it's necessary anymore, right? Because people make the stuff in the U.S. now.
Yeah, but the thing is, the suppliers for the raw materials, all the underground labs in the States back in the day, even up till now, they're all raw material from China.
Right.
Can outsource it from Malaysia, India, I believe Germany, and
how come they don't make raws in Mexico? It seems like that would be the ultimate place to make the raws.
Well, trust me, if that would have been it, I'd be making 90% profit.
I'm saying maybe that should be the next Heyday. Maybe Mexico should just make the raws, and then they could forget smuggling pills in or injectable stuff. Just send the powders over here.
Product years here in Mexico, and I would never bother with the U.S. market again with all the crap going on.
Yeah, it's not worth it for you, but you can sell it in Mexico legally, right, and not worry about it.
Right now, I'm looking to outsource from a company out of Germany where they get their. It's a company based in Germany where they produce their raws in India.
Right.
Purchase them for testing.
How come raws are always produced in these third world countries where is it because labor's so cheap? I mean, what's the deal?
Well, I'll give you an idea on raw material cost. You're looking at test propionate per kilo is maybe about $1,100. And if you're making 100 milligram probe, that's 1,000 bottles of probe.
Yeah.
Where a kilo of Primobolan could run you anywhere from 9,000 to 14,000.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying, why are raws always synthesized in India and China?
I think honestly, it's kind of puzzled me over the years.
It's got to be labor. You know why? Because I'm into like the aquarium fish, and all the best fish come out of like these Malaysian and Indonesian like fish farms where they don't need any heat because it's so hot there. They're in basically little huts, and they have vats. They're not even fish tanks or ponds. They're literally like bathtubs, and they're breeding like thousands of fish in these bathtubs or these dirt holes in the ground that they look like ponds, like self-made ponds, and they make thousands of fish out of there. And that's the U.S. market buys from them because it's so cheap. Because you can't do that in the U.S.
Markup is like 500%.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know what? It's kind of weird because all the companies that, like their websites are gone that make raws, and these are companies that have been in business since probably 2010.
Yeah.
When even I think the companies in Mexico, like Quality Vet, Dental, all of them, they were getting the raw materials from China too. But they're buying 25 kilo drums.
Sure.
And the ones that are still, they're not in business, but I have contact with, they're like, well, we're trying to reopen in the next year, but in Vietnam. And I'm, and
I told you, you want to find the best place to make synthetic steroids, you got to just find the most back country of all. You know, I don't know what's the newest like poorest country you can possibly go to. That's where they'll make them for you. You know,
They have, like in Kuwait or Dubai. You know, why haven't they done?
I'm shocked that Mexico doesn't have a place where they're making raws yet. That's my prediction. That'll be the next thing that they do.
I always, you know, being an American, you know,
You got to get a chemist down there, fly Patrick Arnold down there, open up a lab, and let him synthesize all the steroid raws for you guys. He'll never be able to come back to the U.S. again, but he won't care. Pay him a nice high salary, and just that's it. The end of it. No one has to go to China anymore.
I was producing all my injectables with, you know, filtered grapeseed oil. I buy all the raw materials from out of Florida legally. You know, because, you know, the problem is people always think milligram, but they don't think quality of product.
Of course.
You know, now some companies are actually using medical grade MCT oil.
Yeah, I saw that. What do you think of that? You think it's any better or worse?
I think me personally, I haven't tried anything with them. You know, of course, I haven't taken anything for a year except for the Primotestin Anante 250 from the pharmacy for the moment. But I think buying the filtered grapeseed oil, what makes it so good is, one, you're getting it pre-filtered. You're buying it from a GMP qualified lab. But a lot of Mexican companies, they're not buying the benzyl alcohol laboratory grade, which is 99.9 pure. They're buying, you know, the $5 bottle of 70% rubbing alcohol. That's not going to kill the bacteria in the bottle. You know, that is, I think, the biggest problem. So, you know, if you're buying quality oil, because the viscosity on the filtered grapeseed oil is very light. It's not a thick oil. So, you know, you got people shooting, you know, 3 cc's of product, you know, 2-3 products at the same time. You know, you could do a shot in your shoulder, you know, like, you know, 300 milligrams of Deca, 250 of Bold, and, you know, 300 test, and your shoulder doesn't the next day.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, because the oil is very light.
Right. Well, Cash, I'm running out of time. We got a lot of filming to do today. I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule, telling us that whole story. I love to talk about this stuff because I kind of lived through it, and I know you did as well. And it's a different time. And every era, from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s, now we're into the 2000s. Then we went to 2010s. Now we're in the 2020s. It just seems like the environment changes, but the supply is always there. Someone's always there to create a supply, because there's a huge demand, obviously. And it'll be interesting to see what the 2020s hold in terms of where people will get their stuff and what kind of quality that they're going to get. And I appreciate you taking time and filling us in on what went on down there.
All right. Thanks.
All right, guys. That's going to take us to the end of another episode of Live With. I'm Dave Palumbo for Cash Maroney. We'll see you next time.
See ya.